Well, hi. Good afternoon.
Sorry we're late. We recorded a brief aborted video that got canceled due to Wi-Fi.
I don't know. I don't know
Just
what happened.
booted us right
There
out
were
of it.
so many things going wrong when we tried to do this initially, but anyway, here
But
we
now
are.
everything's going right.
Everything is going really well. So, good afternoon. Welcome to this edition of Hit Subscribe's Facebook Live.
It's our last one in Key West.
It is our
Oh,
last.
wait, not Key
We're not
West.
in Key West though.
I mean, that's what I say because
we're
that's kind of
close.
what people.
Yeah, it's closer than Key Largo, which is
Although
the other one.
It's really much cooler to say from Ramrod Key, which is where we're actually staying.
Yeah, it's nicer here than in Key West. I think there's the percentage of like drunk people roaming the streets is lower.
The percentage of people that are wasted in Margaritaville.
It's very scenic and lovely here. Everybody just wants to fish. That's also what I just want to do. Well, I want to fish, and then I want to talk about post refurbs. Yeah, did you like that? You like that segue?
Once I saw a video, it was like, that's like a segue because it would have been more effective to get there via some other means of transportation.
I love that. That's great.
But we are talking about blog post refurbishments today.
Yes.
Got a question about kind of what that involves and why we do it. So do you want to take this? No, I'm just kidding.
Well,
This
here,
is,
how about I ask you and you? This is Eric's domain, so but let me like try to ask you things and then maybe you can answer them.
All right.
So I guess if I'm just like a person who knows what a blog is, knows what a blog post is, and you talk about blog refurbs, how do you explain that in really simple terms to me in a way that I would understand?
This is one of the easier things to explain out there. So like if you have a post on your blog, some post that you published a couple of years ago, refurbishing it just means to, in the simplest terms, that you go in and you edit it, an already published post, you do some stuff to it and you save the updates. So you take a post on your blog and you do some stuff to improve it, and then you're done, and now you have a new and improved blog post.
Okay, so I guess the logical next question is, what is the stuff? Do I read it back over and do I edit it to make it read better? Do I do like special SEO tricks? What do I do? What's the stuff?
Why don't we do, before that question, the why question, like
okay.
What is the goal with this?
Right.
And what post do you refurbish?
Well, I guess you'll be interviewing yourself too, so you'll be
No, I mean, I like the question, but I was thinking of the answer.
Okay.
And if I was talking about what I was doing, people would be like, well, why would you do that?
Oh, right. Okay.
So the goal is, so the way you pick posts to refurbish, generally speaking, is you go and you look in your Google Analytics or whatever you're using to track your traffic. You want to see posts that are bringing in some traffic, and then you kind of look at how they're doing in search. Like if you Google the thing you wrote about, do you appear as the #1 search result? Are you maybe number 5? Are you somewhere all the way on page 4?
Google in incognito mode.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
So you want to see where you're ranking, and if you're not ranking all that well, but you're getting some traffic, that's a good candidate for what we're doing here, which is refurbishment. So on the extreme end, if you have a post that's just gangbusters, like it's ranking #1 in Google for stuff, you want to leave that alone because you don't want to mess with success.
Yep.
The extreme other end, if you have a post that's not bringing in any traffic at all and doesn't rank for anything, that's kind of dead weight. Some would say you should actually probably delete that post from your blog. It's always hard to do that though, but you probably are, it's not going to be worthwhile to do this refurbishment. So you pick posts that are kind of on the precipice of doing well for bringing in traffic through search, and the goal of the activity is to make them better suited to bring in those searchers. So you're taking a post and you're trying to make it bring more traffic.
You're goosing the ones with potential.
Yep. You're identifying marginal posts and saying, these are but we could probably make them better.
Mm-hmm.
And so then that speaks to, you were asking what sort of things do you do?
So you say you do stuff to the post.
Do stuff to the post. There are a lot of things you do. So the first one I can think of, and I've actually, maybe we can put it in the comments below. I actually did a whole YouTube video about this topic. If you want to see more in detail, but there are a few sort of categories of things that you'll do. The first one has to do with what's called the meta. If you go, like seriously, go do this right now, type something into Google, and you look at the results, there's a link that you can click on, and then there's like a paragraph-ish below and maybe some information describing each link. All of that is in the SEO world collectively known as the title and the meta description. On an actual blog post, for reasons I won't dive into here, all of that is called the meta. And that's the first place you can start. So there are ways in the blog post that you can control what that paragraph says, and you can change the title. And you'll want to go in and make sure that paragraph is descriptive, that it includes the term you're trying to attract searchers for, and that you probably want a call to action. Like in this post we talk about X, click here to learn A, B, and C. So you can make that more enticing, and that's one of the first things that you'll do in a refurbishment.
Do you also look at length, because sometimes Google changes how long the length of that text underneath goes, so you don't want the ... You want it to be really complete?
That's a good point. So for both the title and the description, you don't want it to be, it's called concatenated, where you see an ellipsis at the end and it's cut off. Mm-hmm. You want those, both the title and the description, to be kind of their own little brief, non-cut off.
Non-cut off.
It's better in search. Like statistically speaking, searchers are much more likely to click on something that doesn't look sort of, pardon my French, but half-assed the way it does if you cut off the title.
And you might have done this all right when you first did the post, but you should periodically go back and recheck, because sometimes Google does stuff. They do stuff too. You're doing stuff.
Well, it varies by post, and it's also like by pixel and not by length, so it's hard to know exactly how long. And the thing is, you could just make it like 3 words and then you'd never go over, but then that's not great. So like it's kind of this hard line to walk.
Yeah.
And generally that kind of speaks to the idea of blog posts. Like most people think of blogs, and understandably, because it comes from weblog, is this like archived journal of your life or something. But from a content marketing perspective, you want to think of these as assets that you publish the first time, but then you'll revisit from time to time to add links and to curate and keep them up to date. Which brings me to thing number 2 that I'm going to do to a blog post when refurbishing it. How excited would you be if you were searching for something, like you wanted to go buy camping equipment, and you stumbled upon a post that said like the best camping setups of 2012? Like, is that a post you're going to click on? Nope. So you want, especially with posts that have information that's either based on the time it's published or, in the software world, there's a lot of like revisions that come out, so version 2.0. If you have old versions or old posts, old times, like old years, you want to be updating those periodically. And that doesn't just mean changing 2012 to 2019. It means also going into the content and looking for anything that's out of date.
Right. Don't put the date in your URL either.
Yeah, it's a good piece of advice. That used to be pretty common, that you would encode dates into the URL. It's a pretty surefire way to make sure a post is not at all evergreen.
Yeah, well, I was just thinking too, like, if you have the best camping equipment of 2012 and you make the URL best camping equipment of 2012, even if you update the title of that, people are, if they see the URL, they're going to be like, man, lies and deceit.
Oh, that brings me to a do not do in refurbishing blog posts. Don't change the URL of the blog post.
Oh. Google
completely forgets about all the history of that post, because if you change the URL, Google thinks that's a brand new post with no ranking history. So it just goes right to the bottom.
Is there any case where you would want to make it seem like a whole new post? Or is that...
You just don't want to change the URL. You can rewrite the post wholesale if you want, but you don't want to change the actual URL.
Okay.
Another big thing that we're doing to posts during the course of a refurbishment is breaking up text.
Yes.
It's kind of natural to write in like larger pieces of text anyway. And, because we think of paragraphs the way they're in books, you're going to write these paragraphs that are, 3 to 5 sentences, maybe 6, 7 sentences is kind of normal. In the blogging world, increasingly, that doesn't work as well. You want maybe 1 to 3 sentence paragraphs. And the reason for this is, with absolutely no judgment on readers, but you're reading blog posts in places where you're like, waiting for the bus or waiting to go to your dentist's office.
Lunch break.
So they need to be very scannable or people leave because it's not dense content that you're absolutely required to understand. You're going to skim through it and keep reading as long as you feel like you're kind of making progress down the page. And this isn't just my opinion. There have been a lot of studies in the content marketing world on this. So the biggest thing we're doing is we're breaking up long paragraphs and generally breaking up long chunks of text by inserting pull quotes, graphics, code snippets, anything that makes it something other than just lots of pieces of text. More
Bullets,
headings.
numbered lists.
Yep. So then I guess on a maybe a little bit more of the mechanical side. I won't go into this too much because it probably would require its own whole video, but we're doing things to the links on the page. There are good links and bad links that you can have in a blog post where you're trying to bring in organic traffic. And I will simplify this by saying we are looking to add good links and eliminate bad links. So I don't, if people are interested, we can do a video later about what makes links good and bad. But
I would like to hear about that.
So I've got a freebie for you. Don't link to gambling sites. But seriously, like that's, you never, maybe you had some old blog post where you link to something that's, you look back and you're like, wow, what am I linking to from my professional site?
Yep.
But that's a pretty extreme example. Usually that's not happening on a company's blog. So that runs the gamut. That's probably it in broad strokes for what we're doing with the refurb. And then I guess maybe a good note to wrap it on is to talk about why. And it's not, so we're saying like you're going to rank a few slots higher in Google or what have you, but if you go to any given search engine result page, you Google a term, I forget what the figures are, but it would kind of blow your mind. It's like result number 1 gets like 40% of the clicks. Result number 2 is like 15 and 3, maybe 10. And then after that, it's pretty minimal. So there is a huge difference between ranking number 8 and ranking number 3 or number 2. And that can translate, our clients have, and we help them set up what's called a marketing funnel. So people are coming in, they're reading the blog, they're clicking on different articles and sticking around, and eventually they're going from those pages, to the client's like trials and downloads page, and then maybe they're doing a trial or a download, and then they're signing up and becoming a customer. So that means that you can sort of, and this really depends on the setup, in anonymous fashion, but you can in aggregate say, all right, well, we're getting, 100 people per week landing on this page on the blog, and of those people 10% of them click on the trial page, and of those people 10% of them do a trial, which has a monetary value. So you can actually put dollar values on this traffic that comes in through a given blog post, which means that if you're going from number 8 to number 3 or number 2, you can put a monetary value on that ascension of a blog post. And that's really the reason that people pay us, is because we improve their odds of moving up and making those blog posts worth more money. And generally we're doing it at a rate where, if successful, that is going to pay for itself.
What a great way to close. I'm impressed.
I did not plan that. I feel like that worked out.
You have a career in making YouTube videos, I think.
That'd be fun.
Would you like to be a YouTube celebrity?
Only until I get people that are like, what happened to you? You've changed. Go back to your original content. Yeah, so that's it. We're wrapping here in Ramrod Key. I won't call it Key West. And next week we will check in with you from Raleigh, where we're going to be spending some time. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us.
We'll catch you next time.
Week.